Hello everybody and welcome to our first video. In the following 7 weeks, we will be learning how to program with Python using the Programming with Python online class on the Software Carpentry Hub. We will begin from the complete beginning, so if you have never learned anything about Python or you forgot everything, you don't have to worry. The way how this class goes is that we will be learning Python while doing data analysis on arthritis inflammation in patients. So we're going to be doing something practical and also practical. Yeah, both is practical. So the main source of your learning in this upcoming class will be this web page and the classes that are here, right? Every week I will be publishing hopefully a short video that should sort of just accompany the text and should give you some more explanation or help you while you're reading through the text and doing the exercises to move on smoother. All right, so really the important part is that to do all the exercises and read all the text on the web page. So today, to make sure that everybody is up and running, we will go through the setup and then through the Python fundamentals. So now let us start with the setup. Those who already have running Python and know how to use Jupyter Notebook, they can skip to the part of the video for the Python fundamentals. So if we take a look at the setup, so obviously the first thing we must have is some installation of Python. If you do not have any installation of Python, I recommend you to use Anaconda. On the Moodle page of our class, you can find a link to a video on how to install Anaconda on your computer. Anaconda also automatically contains Jupyter Notebook, so that makes things much easier. Next, we have to download the data that we will need for our class because we're going to be doing data analysis. So here, download these two zip files. Then on your desktop, create a folder called swc-python and unpack these files into this folder. So it should look like this. On a desktop, you have a folder called swc-python, and inside of this you have two folders, code and data, and inside of these you have the actual data that we will work with. Of course, if you're more advanced, feel free to name this how you want and put it wherever you want. The last step before we can start is we have to launch our Python interface. For us, that will be the Jupyter Notebook. So we have several ways. So one way is to go and launch the Anaconda Navigator. So either you write here in the search Anaconda Navigator, you start that. It takes some time, so in my opinion this is not the preferred method. So see, it takes quite some time to load. And now here we can click launch the Jupyter Notebook server, and in your browser, whatever you have, the server comes up here. All right, and here we have a desktop, and here we have the software carpentry, and now we could start to work. But I want to show you first another way. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to close this, and I would say the fastest way is to open what is called the Anaconda prompt. Anaconda prompt, and you just simply write here Jupyter Notebook, enter, and that starts the Jupyter Notebook. Make sure that you do not close this window. This is where the server is running. If you close this window, then whatever you have here, this interface in the browser, it's gonna stop working. All right, so every time you want to use this, I mean, even at the end of the day, if you close this or you restart the computer and then maybe this page comes up, without this it's not going to work. So you have to again go to the Anaconda prompt and start the Jupyter Notebook server. All right, so now we go desktop, Python, data, and so now here, because we want to have easy access to the data, so here now we click here on the right hand side, new notebook, Python 3, and we open a new notebook. So this is our Jupyter Notebook. So for those who never used this before, the Jupyter Notebook, it contains several cells, and in each cell we can run the code independently. So here we have the cell. If I want to just simply mark the cell, I click outside and it's blue, and now I can do stuff with the cell, like I can delete it, for example. I mean, I have only one cell, so let me add another one. Okay, and now I can also delete it, or I can just I can copy the cell. If I want to write into the cell, I click inside, and now you see the cell is green, and now I can be writing. So for example, I write here 5 plus 5. So that's my code. Very simple code. Why not? It's gonna work. And so now I have to run the code. To run the code, either you can press here this run, or much easier and much faster is to simply press Shift Enter. And now you see it ran the code, and input was 5 plus 5. Output is 10. So that worked. Now let me go back. I want to delete the content. I delete the content of the cell. And so to make this notebook look nice and readable, I mean, these notebooks, they can be, as you saw during the class, it can be like a nice presentation. You can include pictures and stuff like that. There is a part that we also want to write some HTML text for this fancy stuff. So as you see, when I'm inside of the cell, up here it says code, and that means Python code. So whenever you press run, Python runs the Jupyter Notebook, thinks there is a Python code and runs it as such. If you want to do the markdown, you just come here and you put markdown. Now you see this numbering here, it disappeared. So these numbers are only for when you write the Python. And now we can write the HTML code here. So I'm, for example, right here. So I want to make a heading. So the name of the course is Programming with Python. And what we're going to be doing today is Python fundamentals. And again, even like before, either you press run or you just do Shift Enter, and that's run the content of your cell. Actually, I don't like this. So to get back here, I just, if I click once, it just marks the cell. If I double click, I'm going to get into the cell. Now I can change the code. So actually I want this to be the heading 2, and this should be the heading 1. So the last thing I want to show about the Jupyter Notebook at this point is that how to rename it. So here it says name is untitled. So you just click up here and let's write this. It's going to be 01 Python fundamentals and rename. And this is how we rename it. And we can also save it, though the autosave does very well. Every time you run a code, it runs the autosave. If you want to learn more how to use the Jupyter Notebook, again, here's a link on Moodle with a video on how to use the Jupyter Notebook. The explanation there is a bit longer and in depth, and gives some more interesting insight. So now let's go back, and so what we are supposed to be doing today is the Python fundamentals. So what basic data types can I work with in Python are the questions. How can I create a new variable in Python? Can I change the value associated with the variable after I create it? All right, so let's answer these questions. So Python can use lots of different data types. We're gonna see that we're gonna be introducing them as we will be using them. So a simple data type is integers, right? Numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, minus 50. So those are integers. Then we also have floats. 5.36. So these represent the real numbers, but please, they are not real numbers, they are floats, because computer cannot really actually store real numbers, but that's for another debate. And the last one for today are strings. So to write strings, you have to put these upper single dashes, and whatever you write in between, I or you. So now this is called a string. This is a string. That means it's a text, and we will work with that. It works as a text, so you can be printing it on the screen. I mean, you can be changing it, you can be working with it. Of course, lots of programs you're using now, they are text related, right? Find a word inside of the text and stuff like that. So that's it. Maybe I introduce right away. If you want to write comments inside of the code, I recommend it very much, because then it's much readable. You use this symbol here and the sharp symbol, and whatever you write after that, it's a command, and the Python doesn't read it. So here, this is a integer, and you see I can run it, it just does nothing. This is a float, and here this is a string. Okay, so these are basic data types that we introduce today. How can I create a new variable? Well, first thing is, what is a variable? Well, we know variables like x from math, right? And the variables in math, they stand usually for something unknown. We have to calculate some equation to find out that x equals to something. In programming, variables are to store data, right? Let's say we want to do something with our age. Oh, I'm sorry, with our weight. So of course we don't want, and let's say our weight is, my weight is, let's say it's 70 kilos, right? And so now I want to work with this. And so if I wrote some code or the program, and I'll be passing the weight, it's not really good to simply be giving this number every time and having it in your code, because what if my weight changes? Then wherever in my code I have this number, I have to change it, right? So instead, I'm going to create a variable, weight, and I put it here in kilograms, and I'm going to assign it 70, and I'm going to do Shift Enter, and that's everything. Now it looks like nothing happened, but actually it happened everything that you wanted. We created a variable, weight underscore kilograms, and in this variable we store the number 70. If I want to see what's inside of this variable, I have two options now. The standard option, if you're in any Python terminal, is you use the function print, and in the function print you write weight underscore kilograms, and I run it, Shift Enter, and it's going to show me 70. When you are in the Jupyter Notebook, it is enough to simply run the code on the variable. However, it only shows you the content of the last variable. So for example, if I put it here twice and I run it, you see it shows it once. If I'm going to do print statement twice, it's gonna show it twice. Yeah. So this one here, this is used more like for you to get the information when you're debugging the code, when you're looking for some mistakes, or you want to know that things are happening properly. If you want to give data to user, you should use the print statement. Since we are playing with the print statement. So let's get rid of this guy here. Okay. So in the print statement, you can put not only one entry, you can put several ones. So we can, for example, we would want to make this more of a sentence. So we put a string. So we put a string here, and the string will be my weight is. That's the end of the string. Now, because we are giving two different pieces of information, we separate them by comma. So that's quite often if you're putting different things, you separate them by comma. And at the end, we also put kilograms. Okay, now I run this and you see it says my weight is 70 kilograms. And now I'm gonna get a bit to these numberings here. So you see that here it says number 5, 6, 7, 8, 13. So it looks a bit strange, but that's because we run those cells in all sorts of different several times. But what is important is the order. So now here is 8 and the last one is 13. So now if I'm gonna run this one for the 14th time or for the 15th time, it always says my weight is 70 kilos. Now if I go back here and I change this to 65, and now I go back here and run this again, it's gonna put here the 65. So you see the order matters. If you do not change this, this will be 65 always. Once you change this and rerun this code, you're gonna get the new number. So again, the main point are the variables. So you can create a variable, you simply put some name, there are some rules, what the name can contain or whatever, they're simple, read it. So you create the name, and then using the equal sign, you assign it a value. You can assign it any value you want. So for example, name, I'll be Jan, and now I created new variable and it stores a string. This variable stores integer. You can also create a variable that stores a float. The variable is something like a sticky note. It has two parts. So it has the name, it has its name, and this is how you call the variable. This is how you find it. And then it has a space somewhere in computer where it stores the value. And you can rewrite the value basically at any point. So here I rewrite the 65 to 75, I run this, and again I run this, and so now you see there is 75 stored inside of this variable. And what I could do is I could even change this, and I could put a string here, and I could put here could put here 100 kilos, and I run this now, and I run this now, and so now you see that inside the variable now contains a string which says 100 kilos. So that can be also done, but let's say it's not recommended to store different things, different types into one variable that you're using. Okay, rather create a different variable. And one more hint: whenever you're creating the name of the variable, of course you can create a variable simply, it's called X. But then whoever is going to read the code, or when you read the code the next day, you will not know what this variable means. So rather give names to the variable that kind of when you read it, it right away tells you, this is what it stores, or this is what it is about. So yeah, so I think we went over everything that we were supposed to today. So read the text more carefully, get onto the details, do the homework, and I'm looking forward to see you next week. Bye.